You knew it was coming, multiplying on paper. We've already talked about adding and subtracting. So the first thing with multiplying is you, of course, want to memorize your times tables. I know I sound like your middle school teacher, but you definitely do. You know, for example, what is 11 times 9? 99. What is 6 times 4? 24. What is 12 times 5? 60. These are things you, of course, want to memorize. But what if you want to do 212 times 4? If you want to do this on paper, there are rules you can follow. So let's just go ahead and use this pretty straightforward example to kind of show how it works. So the first thing you want to do is the relationship between the 4 and the 2. So what is 4 times 2? It is 8. So we put the 8 there. You then want to do the relationship of the 4 and the 1. What is 4 times 1? It is 4. So you put the 4 down there. And then finally, you want to do the relationship between the 4 and the 2. 4 times 2 is 8. The reason why this is an easy example is because notice 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. None of those numbers, those results, those products are greater than 9. None of them are 10, 11, 20, 30, nothing like that. So this is about as easy as it gets. Very smooth sailing. Let's look at a slightly more complicated example. If we were to do 415 times 7, of course, we're going to focus on the 7 and 5 first. And 7 times 5 is 35. But we can't have 35 down here. Remember, you have to kind of operate one digit at a time, specifically with the unit digit of the 35. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep the 5 down there, and we're going to move the 3 up here. And here we can now focus on 7 times 1. Okay, so here's 7 times 1. Then we do 7 times 1 plus 3. We don't do 7 times 1 times 3. We don't do 7 plus 1 plus 3. We do 7 times 1 plus 3. And of course, that's going to be 7 plus 3, which is 10. So there's the 10. But again, the same rule applies. You can't have 2 digits down here whenever you do this. So we're going to move the 1 up there. And remember, this is going to be the third and kind of final part. We're going to do 7 times 4, not 7 plus 4, 7 times 4 plus 1. So 7 times 4 is 28, plus 1, of course, is going to be 29. Now, because there's no more like relationships to do, like we did 7 and 5, 7 and 1, 7 and 4, we're done. And in this case, you're allowed to have 2 digits, right? You're allowed to have 2 digits if it's the very last step. So the correct answer is going to be 2,905. So that's a slightly more complicated example. Let's look at another one. So this is even more complicated because now we don't have just one number in the second number. We have 2, 34. So here's what we do. We're first going to do 4 times 5, which of course is 20. So we're going to put the 0 down there and the 2 at the top in the second column. We're then going to do 4 times 1, and don't forget to add that 2, right? 4 times 1 plus 2, that's going to be 6. In this case, that's just a single digit, so we don't need to really mess around with it. And then we're going to do 4 times 3, which of course is 12. And because that is the end of the relationship with the 4s, it's okay for us to have 2 digits there, the 1 and the 2. We don't have to do anything with the 1 because we're out of room. But we have only looked at the relationship of the top number to the 4. What about the 3 in the second number? So we have to repeat this process. But here's where it gets a little bit weird. Before you start doing this game with the 3, you have to put in a 0. You have to put a 0 here first. Yeah, so if you're in the second leg of this journey, you have to put a 0, and then now you do the process. So we do 3 times 5, which of course is 15. So we put the 5 there and the 1 at the top of the second column. We then do 3 times 1, which is 3 plus 1, which is 4. In that case, it's only 1 digit, so it's pretty straightforward. And then finally, we're going to do 3 times 3, which is 9. And then once we have these 2 numbers below the line, 1260, 9450, what we're going to do to those is we're going to add those together. So what is 0 plus 0? 0. What is 6 plus 5? Remember, we already learned this adding on paper, right? So 6 plus 5 is 11. So we're going to put the 1 there and the 1 on top in the next column. So then we have plus 1, plus 2, plus 4, which is going to be 7. And then finally, in the last column, 1 plus 9 is going to be 10. And because that's the final step, we're allowed to have two numbers there. And the final result is 10,710. Yeah, it's not super fun, but you get the hang of it. Don't worry. Okay, what about this one? So in this one, we have to do the process 3 times. So of course, feel free to pause the video, give it a shot yourself. But what we're going to do first is we're going to do 5 times 6. So remember, in the first row, because we're doing this 3 times, we have no zeros, right? But in the second row with the 7, remember, whenever we're doing the second one, we're going to have a 0. And then in the third row with the 3, we're going to have 2 zeros. And of course, if we were repeating this process with even longer numbers, the zeros would just keep getting added and added and added and added. And in fact, we can go ahead and do this one with a marker. Okay, so here we go. All right, what is 5 times 6? 5 times 6, right? We're doing 5 times 6 is going to be 30. So we're going to put the 0 right here, and we're going to put the 3 up here. And then we do 5 times 5, which is 25, plus 3, which is 28. So we're going to put the 8 right there, and then the 2 right there. And then we do 5 times 4, which is 20, plus 2, and that's going to be 22. Okay, so that is the first step. Now remember, in the second step, we had to add this 0 already. So the 0 is already there. So we do 7 times 6, which is 42. So we're going to put the 2 right there. And sometimes it gets a little bit tedious because you already have numbers up there. So you kind of have to erase them or kind of organize things to make sure things don't get kind of lost. So 7 times 6 is going to be 42. So we have the 2 here. We put the 4 right there. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 plus 4 is 39. So we put the 9 there and the 3 there. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 3 is going to be 31. So 31. And then finally, we're going to repeat this process one more time. But because it's our third leg, we have to have these 2 extra zeros here. So we do, and let's get rid of these numbers at the top so we don't confuse ourselves. So we're going to do 3 times 6, which is 18. So we put the 8 there and the 1 there. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is going to be 16. Put the 6 there and the 1 there. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is going to be 13. Now, you have to add all of these together. They don't look very organized, so let's organize them a little bit better. So here's what we're adding together. We're adding 2, 2, 8, 0. And then down here, we're adding 3, 1, 9, 2, 0. And then down here, we're adding 1, 3, 6, 8, 0, 0. And remember, we're adding these together. So what is 0 plus 0 plus 0? That's going to be 0. What is 8 plus 2 plus 0? That's 10. Put the 0 there and the 1 up here. What is 1 plus 2 plus 9 plus 8? That is going to be 20. So we put the 0 there and the 2 right here. What is 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 6? So that is going to be 11. Put the 1 there and the 1 there. What is 1 plus 3 plus 3? That is going to be 7. We don't have to do anything because that's just a single digit. And then finally, what is 1 plus 0, 0, whatever it is, that's just going to be 1. So the final answer is 171,000. Let's go ahead and confirm that with a calculator because, of course, if this is wrong, I have to redo the video. So if you're hearing this, it should be correct. So here we go. We got 456 times 375. Indeed, it does equal 171,000. Ah, that's amazing. But that's not it. That's not it. There's another thing we have to talk about with multiplying on paper, and that's with decimals. So do you guys remember in addition and subtraction, we would line up the decimals? Here, you don't do that. So what you want to do here is not line up the decimals, but line up the numbers so that the rightmost number matches the rightmost number, okay? The rightmost number matches the rightmost number. Now, for right now, I want you to ignore the decimals, and let's just go through the process. Okay, let's go through the process. All right, and pause the video if you want to do it yourself first. Okay, what is 6 times 1? That's going to be 6. Because that's a single digit, we don't have to carry anything over, okay? What is 6 times 5? That's going to be 30, so we put the 0 here and the 3 up there. What is 6 times 7? That's going to be 42. 42 plus 3 is 45, so we're going to put the 5 and then the 4. And then 6 times 3 plus 4 is going to be 22. Okay, so this is the first step of the process. Remember, in the second step of the process, we have to add that 0, right? So 5 times 1 is going to be 5. 5 times 5 is going to be 25, so we put a 5 here. Let's get rid of these numbers at the top so we're not confusing ourselves. I should have done that before. Okay, so 5 times 5 is 25, which means we have the 5 there, and we're going to put the 2 there. 5 times 7 is 35 plus 2, which is going to be 37. So we put the 7 there and the 3 here. 5 times 3, 15 plus 3 is 18. And then for the final step, again, we have to add 2 zeros. So here we go. Let's get rid of those numbers at the top so they don't confuse us. All right, so 4 times 1 is 4. It's always nice when it's times 1 because you don't have to do anything. It's just like, oh, 4 times 1. It's like so straightforward. 4 times 5 is going to be 20. Put a 0 there. Put the 2 there. 4 times 7 is 28 plus 2. That's 30. Put the 0 there. Put the 3 there. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 3 is 15. And again, you want to add all of this up. So we have 6, 5. That's going to be 14, so we put the 4, carry the 1. That's going to be 10, so put a 0, carry the 1. That's going to be 11, put a 1 there, carry the 1. That's going to be 7, and that's going to be 1. So we're left with 171, 0456, which I think is the correct answer. In fact, I have it right here. Pretend I did all of the work. So the question is, what do we do with the decimal? This is really the question. What do we do with the decimal? Because it has to go somewhere. In addition and subtraction, we could perfectly line them up, but here they're not perfectly lined up. So what you want to do is you want to count. So check this out. Notice here that to the right of the decimal, we have 1 digit. And then over here, we have 2 digits. So how many digits do we have to the right of the decimals? It's going to be 3. So what we do is we just move the decimal over 3 spots. So 1, a 2, and a 3. And in fact, if the decimal was originally like right here, for example, just imagine, in that case, we would only have 2 digits to the right of the decimals, in which case the decimal would be right here. Or if the decimal were here, we would have 4 digits, 1, 2, 3, 4, all to the right of the decimal, in which case it would go here. Again, the more you practice this, the easier it gets. Try not to freak out about it. You'll get fast at it.